Okay, we're rolling. This is the first time I've done something like this. I'm excited and also a little trepidatious. I'm Will Stratton, and this space that I'm in is Roxabox and Recording, which is a former Sunday school room in the basement of an inactive church in Beacon, New York. And I am here to walk you through the mix that I did for the first track on my new album, Points of Origin. And I think I'm going to do a few of these mix walkthroughs as the album kind of rolls out and songs get released and things. And I really enjoy mixing music. Mixing my own music is kind of a psychological torture, but it's also it's the only way that I know how to operate, really. I've been doing it for a long time this way, and I feel like I need that control over the recording process, just because, as I think you'll see, so much of the way that this song is mixed has to do with the song's meaning, at least to me. Maybe that won't come across, but I'm interested to see. The drums and bass on this recording were engineered by Phil Weinrobe at his home studio, Sugar Mountain, which was a really wonderful experience. The bass is played by Dandy McDowell. The drums are played by Sean Mullins. Lena Bartels is on backing vocals. And if we just go down the list here, I'm playing the piano. We tracked that at Sugar Mountain, but then I retracked it here because I wanted to add some kind of articulations and some improvisational stuff that I was too nervous to do in the studio with everybody else. So I took my piano part out and then I retracked it on my own little Baldwin Hamilton upright that's here in the studio. The synth parts I played on a Yamaha Reface CS, which is right here. Great little digital recreation of analog Yamaha synthesizer. The nylon guitar is me. That's more of a textural thing, as I think you'll hear. It's not. It doesn't figure very prominently in this recording. There is a lot of guitar on this song, but it's all kind of for seasoning rather than undergirding the structure of the song, which I think is much more in the rhythm section and in the piano. 12 strings played by Joshua Murray, fantastic guitarist. You may know his band Blue Ranger, or you may know his work with the band Pine Grove. His playing on this song was all recorded by his brother Evan Murray, who plays bass in Blue Ranger and who is a great recording engineer. I just love the sounds that he got of his brother playing. These electric guitar parts are me. I'll talk a little bit about those. The sax is played by Justin Keller, really fantastic sax player, a classical guy. He went to conservatory and all that up in New England, and he used to live here in Beacon. Now he lives a little further south, but still on the Hudson. And just a great player, and so dialed in. Like I can sing parts for him, and he can just play it, and we can work through things that way, which is more expeditious sometimes, or expedient than writing things out. I find it just, things come to me a little bit more intuitively that way sometimes. These guitar tracks are again all Joshua Murray. A lot of this doesn't even sound like guitar. He's doing some really fantastic things with a looping pedal, and who knows what else he's putting these signals through, but it's really beautiful. And then finally, the pedal steel is Hamilton Belk, up in Maine. Just a great player and really, really nice guy. I've met him a couple times when he's been on the road, and that's actually how we ended up connecting and working on this together. But his steel playing and Justin's saxophone playing both appear on other songs on the record, and for some reason I really love that combination of saxophone and pedal steel. This record is very focused on evoking a place that doesn't really completely exist in real life. I don't think it's based on the state of California, but it's a version of California that's partly my own memories of childhood and my parents' memories of growing up in California in the 70s in the Bay Area and the 60s, and then real life California, and also the California of fiction, of Pynchon and of different books that I've read. And the combination of pedal steel and saxophone to me kind of evokes this placelessness that's both kind of urbane and Western. So this is going to be interesting. I haven't looked at this mix in a few months. I think I finished mixing it back in mid-September. And like I said, some of the tracking was done with Phil at his studio, and about a year after this was tracked, this was tracked a few years ago at this point, but about a year afterward, I took a mixing class with Phil, one of those remote things where we were all on Zoom, and Phil was walking us through some things about his mixing philosophy, and I won't spoil any of that in case you want to take that class, but one of the very basic things that stuck with me about Phil's approach is that he mixes left to right a lot more than he mixes top down. And what that means is he's focused so much on the arrangement and making dynamic mixing choices, either involving automation or selective bypass of different plugins or whatever the case is. I mean, he's doing a lot of real-time manipulation outside the box. I mix entirely in the box for a variety of reasons, most of which are economic. But in any case, he's focused very much on the progression of time, because what is music if not, occurring across the progression of time, which makes a lot of sense to me. Before this class I took with him, I was very much a top-down mixer, and I probably still am at heart, but it's really been helpful to think about things from his perspective a little bit, or from what I interpret to be his perspective. But what top-down mixing means, at least to me, is you choose the things that need to be the focal point in a mix throughout the song, and you really emphasize those through the equalization that you use and the dynamics that you use, through the selective application of reverb and modulation to bring things further back into the mix. There are all sorts of stylistic choices you can make that will either make things recede or rise in prominence to the listener. And I have a tendency to do a lot of folding in, because I get very attached to sounds and I want to keep them, but sometimes they end up getting in the way of other things that are going on in a song sonically. And so I'll do a lot of high pass filtering and a lot of really washy reverbs on things that need to be less prominent, and then I'll try to mix things much more dryly when they need to be forward in a mix. And with this song and with this record, the words, the lyrics are really important. This song is, to me, it's a narrative of a person who, pardon the pops. You know what? I'm actually gonna put a pop filter on here. I'll just hold it. There we go. One of the things that this song is about to me, maybe the main thing, is it's a person who is really searching for human connection while also trying to survive. This is one of two songs on the record. The first and second songs are the narrative of these two brothers who had really rough childhoods, get separated early on, and then kind of figure in each other's lives from afar later on in their lives. Each song on this record is a story told by a different character, and all of the characters exist in this larger world of California, and their narratives kind of interweave and affect one another in what are hopefully interesting ways. And so the lyrics are very important, and to that end, the vocals on this record are way up front in the mix and mixed pretty dryly. I mean, I'm using a little bit of reverb for atmosphere here and there, but I'm not burying these vocals at all. So to start with the vocal mix here, I'm using an LA2A to really bring the vocal forward in the mix, and then I'm using some noise reduction from Isotope, the mouth declicker, which is great because I have a very clicky mouth, and I love recording very up front on the mic, at least with my own voice, because I think that the proximity effect helps thicken the timbre of my voice a little bit. And also to that end, I use this Stratton EQ a lot on my vocal on this record because I like this this frequency bump that it provides. The curves are just really great on this EQ, I think. Whatever emulation of a Trident you use, whether it's Arturias or UADs or whatever, I think the frequency curves can be very useful for vocals and for piano. But anyway, aside from that, I've got a de-esser, and that's it. The automation I'm doing on this song is really fairly minimal. I tracked multiple vocal takes, and then I comped them together, and then I adjusted the volume on certain phrases, but I didn't do anything too radical in that department. Most of the dynamic control that's going on is being achieved by the LA2A, and I'm not doing anything too crazy with that. Just the gain and the peak reduction are just set as you see there. And then with Lena's vocal, I think that the main thing is it's being sent to a reverb. Let's see if I can find that. I think it's a reverb that I use for multiple things. Yeah, I've got it labeled here. It's the 12 string and backing vocal verb. So it's also used by the 12 string. It's this AKG BX20, which I really like. It's a very washy spring reverb. And also got some tremolo on it, which is kind of funny. I think I was thinking that that vocal and the 12 string could kind of sound like they were coming out of a ratty old guitar amp or something like that. Then with Dandy's bass playing, man, they're an incredible bass player. they just kind of dropped into this session and whipped out all of these incredible phrases that I think really make this song special. So I'm just using a couple plugins here. There's Good Hertz Toop, which I use a lot just for the filter, for very basic filtering. I'm not using it for any saturation on this track, which is really what the plugin is made for. But I didn't think the bass needed that. And then the Little Labs Voice of God analog bass resonance tool, which I also use on the kick on this song. I started using this when I mixed Ben Saratan's record Youth Pastoral, because he really wanted a very prominent kick sound on that record, almost like an EDM kick or a dance kick where you can feel it in your chest. And I'm just gonna keep bopping this with the pop screen, but hopefully you won't mind. So yeah, that was when I started using that on kick, and you just have to dial it in by ear. You know, I've got these HED HEDD Type 5 monitors that I bought maybe 5 years ago. They're quite small, but the low frequency response is still pretty good for a room of this size. I think this is about I can't remember how big this room is. Anyway, this desk that I'm at is in the center of the room, and so the speakers aren't back up against the wall. They're kind of right in the middle of the space, which I think helped a lot in dialing in the low end on this record. That's something that I still need a lot of practice with, is getting the low end right. Greg Obis really helped in the mastering process, making sure that the low end was where it needed to be to translate well on a variety of speaker systems. But anyway, that's the Little Lab Voice of God. It's very much a trial and error plugin in my experience. You really have to be listening with headphones off, unless you've got some of those big like HEDD headphones or some I can't remember what the other headphones are that have a really great low frequency response. But anyway, I recommend, if you use that plugin, mixing with your monitors and with your sub if you have a sub, which I do not. Moving on, the rhythm section in general, I didn't do a whole lot. Phil recorded these things so well, and a lot of times when you see a lot of plugins on a track, it's because I didn't record it that well. But this one, the prominent characteristic of the rhythm section that isn't in the recording itself is the spring reverb and tape echo on the snare drum. So if I were to play you the drums and take that off, you'll hear what I mean. This is something I've done a lot on drums on my records. Not always, but sometimes I just feel like there needs to be a little bit of washiness that is not completely obscuring the rhythmic character of what's going on. But so here's the drums as they are mixed. And then, let's see, I'm going to bypass the tape echo and the spring reverb. And the other things that are contributing to the character of this drum sound, I mean, the main thing, well, there are a couple of things. There's the Devil Lock compression on the snare and on the overhead, well, the distressor on the overhead. So that's one thing. But the other thing is this room reverb, which if I take that off, now you've got a really dry drum sound. If I bring that back on, and then I add these back, it makes a big difference. It just completely changes the character of the rhythm section, for better or for worse, depending on your taste. But I think it really helps add a kind of ambiance to this song that goes really well with the intimacy of the piano sound. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, gonna unsolo these. I forget all of my Pro Tools shortcuts at the moment, so just bear with me. All right. And going down the list here, you know what? Maybe if I back off of the mic, I won't be popping so much. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. So the shaker comes in on verse 2, and that's an arrangement decision that just gives a little bit more architecture to the song. I have a tendency to just bring in instruments, bring in, and then take them away, and then bring them back in. And that's how I create drama in my songs, really. I'm no rocket scientist when it comes to arrangements, especially on this record. I'm so focused on the lyrical content of the songs and getting that across that arrangement is kind of a secondary concern a lot of the time. But I really love the shaker sound. I can't remember if this was me or Sean. I think it was probably Sean. Yeah, I think that was Sean. But in any case, I like having a shaker that is doubled and then hard panned. And so that's what I've got here. Nothing crazy going on. I'm using the mellow-fi to kind of preemptively, with the filter over here, take out some of the high frequency information before I run it through the Devil Lock, which is this really brutal limiter that I have it set on 0 here, but don't be fooled. That's still very heavy-handed in a really nice way. You just have to be careful with it. And these things that are marked as percussion, these are actually handbells that you can hear just in the background. Sean was playing these with the remaining studio time that we had on that weekend. I think it was 4th of July weekend 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe it was just 2 years ago. Maybe it wasn't 3 years ago. In any case, these handbells are so nice. I just love them, and I didn't do almost anything to them. I might have moved some of them around slightly, but they kill me. They're so... I mean, why? Why are they there? I don't know, but they add something. I think because they're set so far back in the mix, it's like hinting at something else that's going on in the song that isn't quite articulated. And this track that's labeled Plastic Bags, this is a Phil Weinrobe decision to track these plastic bags. This was me and Sean in the drum room after the rhythm section was tracked. We were crinkling plastic bags to emulate the sound of a forest fire, and it's pretty evocative. We're only using it in this nearly the end of the song when I start singing about my cabin burning up. But it's mixed pretty low, and So I don't know if it comes across consciously, but I'm hoping that there's kind of a subconscious resonance there. That's something that I'm kind of fixated on a lot of the time, is putting things into these mixes that are not discernible consciously necessarily, but that the listener nonetheless picks up on, some part of their consciousness picks up on it. That's my hope, at least. Maybe that's a bit woo-woo, but psychoacoustics is a real field, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary pals. So the piano, this is pretty straightforward. I like to mic a piano with the mics pretty close to where the hammers are hitting the strings, but I also like to get some sound of my fingers hitting the keys. And with this piano recording, I wasn't getting enough of the finger sound, which is why I brought in this sketch cassette plugin, and particularly the NR comp section of this. I've got the compression mix pretty high, and the compression algorithm on this plugin is amazing. I think this was made by a couple of people in Rochester, New York, who I'd love to meet sometime. I wish I knew how to code and to make plugins. I've thought about trying to teach myself, but it's kind of an uphill battle. But anyway, the compression algorithm in this, I think it's intended to emulate the compression on a Tascam Portastudio, which is it's supposed to be compensating for the lack of high frequency information in those cassettes. I think that's kind of the point of that. But I use it here. I can probably play you a little bit to show you. Hold on. God, this one number keeps calling my phone that I have no knowledge of. Spammers, I don't like them. So if I pull up this sketch cassette and I play you a little bit from the piano track. Now, if I play you that with it bypassed, I think you'll hear what I mean about the sound of the fingers on the keys. You won't be able to hear them as much. They're still there, but they're not as prominent. And when you've got that piano part happening in a full mix, I don't know. I think the compression in the sketch cassette is very useful for that. Just bringing out and exaggerating high frequency information in the context of a bunch of other stuff happening, where it's not going to sound cartoonish because you're perceiving all of these other sounds at the same time. With the synthesizer, almost no mixing going on here except where I've put the playing. There's a bunch of other playing that I took out, and the only other mixing decision with the synthesizer is the use of microshift on one of these tracks, which I love microshift. I use it a bunch on this record. It's not a recreation of a particular piece of hardware. I think each of these styles is a recreation of a different type of stereo widening effect. But I really like number 3. I don't know why. I'm always drawn to number 3, no matter what the context. I guess it's my lucky number. I think this is a Neve digital stereo widener from the 80s or something like that. I can't quite remember. But yeah, for the synthesizer, I've got these 2 synth parts here at the end, for example. One of them doesn't have the micro shift on and the other one does. And let me play a little bit of that. Oh, let me mute the piano. So just a couple pads, fading in and out with a very fast tremolo on them, which to me sounds like something from a Michael Mann movie, or a digital recreation of a string tremolo, which is one of my favorite musical sounds, just like a string quartet all doing that tremolo. I love that sound. And when I take the micro shift off, I think you'll hear the difference. It's just not quite as magical. It's not quite as sparkly. And there's a nostalgia thing there for me. I think those late 80s, early 90s soundtracks, those activate some part of my brain from early childhood that reminds me of being in California. So that's part of what's going on there. The nylon guitar, I'm trying to do almost like a Leonard Cohen thing with this part, but it's mostly there for texture. So if I play a little bit of that, you'll hear what I mean. Also, I think this section right here might not be missing from the recording, the official studio recording. I'm not really sure. But let me play this section where we've got both of these going on. So I've got a high pass and a low pass filter on these. I can't remember why. This was tracked a long time ago, but I think I wanted to remove some of the low end and some of the high end. It's possible that I didn't like the sound of my fingernails on the strings, and I didn't want too much low frequency information because it was interfering with the bass or something. I don't know. But the sketch cassette, again, I'm using it mostly for this section. I'm not using it for the wow and the flutter, which is also a really great use for this plugin. And probably the more popular draw is, you get the tape saturation sound, and you get the aged warble, which is so popular these days. But in any case, I'm using it to bring out something about the high frequencies that I'm not able to hear in the version as it's recorded dry. I can't really put it into words much more than that. Okay, now we get into one of my favorite parts of the song, which is Josh's 12-string playing, which to me sounds almost like a spaghetti western thing. It's got kind of an Ennio Morricone vibe, especially the way that I've mixed it. I've got a phaser on one of two tracks. These are hard panned, and I think they're separate takes. I don't remember. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that he double tracked these and sent both to me. But I've got this send that you may remember from the backing vocal, Lena's backing vocal. And so we've got the spring reverb, the AKG, and the tremolo from Sound Toys. And that's only affecting the send from the right channel, and that is hard panned to the left. So let's take a listen just to this little snippet. So there's this phaser as well. That's going on in the right channel, and then you can hear it again in the reverb that's coming out of the left channel through this send. So if I take the phaser out, here's what it sounds like. It's just a little bit less washy. And then if I play it back without the reverb and without the tremolo, and then I bring the phaser back in, yeah, it's just there's a lot going on in that little instrumental recording and the way that I chose to mix it. I don't really know why I chose to do it the way that I did, except that I liked it, the way that that sounds in the context of everything else that's going on. The beds have gone dry, but I do what I can. And there is a lot going on there. I mean, I think every instrument in the song is playing in that moment. The electric guitar down here is similar to what I was doing on Nylon, just doing triplets, and in this case I'm running it through the Strymon Deco, which gives it this similar to the micro shift, except it's simulating tape instead of simulating a stereo widening hardware unit. And then over here, same thing through the Strymon Deco. And that's the one that's triplets, actually. That's the one that is similar to the Nylon. Originally, I had that going throughout the entire song. I really liked this part that I came up with, but you know, too much of a good thing it's too much. And then we get to the saxophone. I recorded this with the mic I'm speaking into right now. This is not the mic that I recorded my vocal on, which is this microphone here, which is a Perlman TM1. But yeah, I used the RE20 on the saxophone, which is the same thing I did with Justin's sax playing on my previous record 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever I tracked that. I just really like the sound of the RE20 on tenor sax. I don't know why, but I love the breathiness of Justin's playing, and one microphone, you know, pointed in the general direction of what he's doing so masterfully just does the trick, and it doesn't take much to make that sit properly in the mix. So if I solo these, we've got a little bit of flutter and wow going on in the Mello-Fi plugin from Arturia. We've got a little bit of lessening of the high frequencies in the filter there, a little bit of preamp distortion, and then we've got the Arturia version of the RE201 here. Just got some tape delay going on. And these are, you know, two parts in harmony, hard panned, which is often my approach with Justin's sax playing. I don't know why. I just love the bookend of those phrases. But the other thing that's going on here with his sax is we're sending this to a reverb chamber here, which is the UAD Capital Chambers plugin. And that's another plugin I really like. I'm using that on my lead vocal as well. Yeah, there it is, the send. And I like having the sax and the lead vocal occupying that same space. Even though I'm only sending a little bit of the lead vocal to that, it's kept fairly dry. I'm sending more of the sax to it. But I don't know. I love the way that sounds with the capital chambers. I'll give you a little taste of what it sounds like without it. So here's with. And here's without. And both sound nice, honestly, but there's a lonesome quality that you get with the saxophone when you've got just the right amount of a chamber reverb on it, I think. It reminds me of the last scene in the Francis Ford Coppola movie, The Conversation, with Gene Hackman sitting there in his apartment after he's stripped the whole thing bare, looking for a wiretap, and he's playing saxophone there by himself. Okay, now we get into more of Josh's playing here, and just out of curiosity, I don't remember what he's doing here near the very end of the song, and I want to hear it. So I'm going to solo these and see if we can hear just this last section. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then I cruelly take it out there at the last minute so that I can just hear that last syllable of the sax to take us out. But man, Josh is such a good player. He and Evan were very generous with the amount of music they sent me to work with when I hired Josh to play on this record. So a lot of that is just swells, but he's doing some really incredible stuff with his pedal board here. Let me see if this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on there, but I love it. It's bubbly and weird. But I did not do much mixing with Josh's playing. As you can see here, I've frozen these tracks so that they would drag a little bit less on CPU when I was finalizing this mix, just because there are so many tracks. And again, I used a little bit of microshift, a little bit of Devilock, a little bit of plate reverb, but most of these tracks I was keeping completely dry. And finally, we get to Hamilton's pedal steel, which, contrary to how it looks in this frozen track, I didn't use most of these plugins. I was playing around with this at the end, and I think all I ended up using was the guitar denoiser from Isotope RX, and maybe a little bit of high pass filter to really call attention to the low end in this track. But I kept things pretty dry because I wanted the pedal steel not to just be the stereotypical country lonesome pedal steel. I felt like that was already being achieved emotionally with the saxophone in a way. And I wanted the steel part to really be a counterpart for the vocal and the dryness, the relative dryness of the vocal. And And so, there's no reverb on there, no modulation, contrary to the micro shift appearing in that list. It's just really straightforward because his playing is so beautiful, and I didn't want anything to obscure that. Melodically, it was really helping too. Before the pedal steel part was added to this arrangement, it was just missing something, some element of call and response that I kept trying to get with another instrument and couldn't quite get. But Hamilton really nailed this, and it was just like a cherry on top for this arrangement. And aside from that, we've got some bus processing down here at the bottom. Most of the tracks in this mix are being sent to this instrument bus. I've got Track Spacer, which, let's see if I can explain this properly. I probably can't, but I'm going to try. I am sending my vocal signal as a sidechain to this plugin, and when I'm singing on this recording, it is applying an inverse EQ curve in order to carve out space in real time in the rest of the track, all of the other instruments in the track, sort of just ducking a little bit, not volume-wise necessarily, although that's a byproduct, but equalization-wise, they're ducking only when I'm singing. So it shouldn't be that perceivable, especially because I only have it at 15%, which is still pretty heavy-handed. But I ended up using this plugin a lot on this record, and this was something that Phil clued me into in that mixing class. But so that's the story with the instrument bus. There's nothing else going on that bus. On the master bus, this volume at +5, I did that for this video just so the volume would be high enough relative to my voiceover. But the Townhouse bus compressor, this is kind of like it's evocative of the SSL bus compressor from their consoles in the 80s. It's just there to glue things together, as they say, and make things sound a little bit more cohesive. And I've got a little bit more of the LA2A compression on the vocal bus. So that's running through the LA2A twice, which I like to do sometimes, or sometimes, I'll do an 1176 and then an LA2A or vice versa. Usually not vice versa though. And that's basically the mix. I could just go on and on about this arrangement, but I think it would get progressively more boring. There we go. I don't know how long that's been in front of my face, but it doesn't matter. That's this song, and I think as other singles from this record come out, I'll probably do additional walkthroughs of the mixes in case that's interesting to anybody. But I think that's it for today, and thank you for listening. Hopefully this has been somewhat informative, or at least somewhat interesting if you're somebody who's interested in mixing and recording and that kind of thing. All right.